Are we ready to draw the little green man? Yeah? All right, let's get started. We're starting with an oval in the center of our page. As far as the size and proportions here, think like you're drawing an avocado in the center of your page, or a potato, or a lemon. That kind of oval, where it's not too skinny and stretched, there is a bit of height to it. You can also think about like a bakery bun. I'm just lightly building up on this oval here. The idea of me just continuing to draw ovals is that I'm bound to get one I like. It's a lot easier to draw that way, rather than just like drawing one oval and hoping it's good. Any character you draw is going to require construction lines. For the LGM, or the little green man, I'm going to bring a vertical line right through the center, and I would make sure you extend it higher above that oval, because it's going to help us with some features later. Now, the eye line on this character is interesting, because normally an eye line's like lower in the face, maybe halfway up. For this guy, it's going to be just underneath the top of his head. We're going to place in this curved line, think like a large rainbow, running parallel to the top of that oval there. The way that we usually draw our characters, we block out a silhouette and a foundation, and then later we slow it down and we add in details. So right now we're just going to lay some groundwork, so that way we're going to know where to place all of his features. I'm also placing in a horizontal line, maybe a little under halfway on that oval. And the ears on this guy make me think of like elf ears, or you could think of it like Spock from Star Trek maybe. They're pointy. And so what I like to do is just above that oval, I've given myself this guideline, so that way I know I can make the ears the same height. That's really going to help. The ears themselves, I'm going to pull from that line down to that halfway point that you drew right here. So just some tilted lines. Right now it looks like you're placing a crown on his head. But to get that elf ear type shape, we then want to use some large letter J curves. We're going to pull from that same line. I'm going to add in a tall letter J curve on each side. We're almost done with our foundation. The very last step is just adding in a little collar for the spacesuit that this little guy wears. And it's really simple to draw. It's just going to go underneath the ears. And what I would do is start with a set of parentheses. So I'm just placing in some letter C curves on each side. And then finally, you just connect them with a large letter U. So it's almost like a large inner tube type shape. This is our basic foundation, and it might be kind of general still. We might not see the little alien just yet, but this is going to help us place all the features we need for him. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to go back and lock in some of this, which means I'm going back with darker line work, and I'm cleaning up my sketch, I'm finalizing it, and I'm using dark lines to bring forward features that I want to see in the final version of my drawing. I would say at this point you're good to lock in that collar of the spacesuit, the ears, and the bottom of the face. So leave the top of his face light for right now, because we have some more features to add up there. But locking in, again, only for what you like, so if there's anything that looks a little off to you, or if you made a mistake, not a problem. Just don't lock those things in. Leave them light, and they will fade into the background as you go. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about this character and the films that they appear in, because there's a lot of interesting facts about the Toy Story franchise. For those of you who didn't know, Toy Story is the very first Pixar film ever to come from the studio. And because of that, I believe it was also the first full-length computer animated film to be made. And so it really made history when this film debuted. And part of the reason why this franchise has been so successful is not only was it a pioneer in technology, but it also had a great story to go with it. Great characters that have really stood the test of time. So for that reason, a lot of people compare Toy Story to like Snow White, how Snow White put full-length animated features on the map. This film put computer animated features on the map. And it really changed the entire animation industry because not only did Pixar become like a huge studio, but also pretty much every animation studio also converted to computer animation after seeing the success of films like Toy Story, Bugs Life, Monsters, Inc. These films were just huge. And these little green aliens, to my knowledge, appeared in every single Toy Story film, and we've gotten 4 of them at this point. Apparently there's a 5th one on the way. I'm very curious to see what kind of story they come up with. We'll see. But these characters, again, in all those films, as well as a ton of short films. Toy Story has really spanned across every type of media. We've gotten films, we've gotten TV show spin-offs like Buzz Lightyear as Darkman, we've gotten short series on Disney+, theme park attractions and lands. The list goes on. Like Toy Story is just iconic, and largely due to a lot of the fun characters, like these little aliens, right? People love these aliens. Inside of each of those ears, I want to place in some little folds. This is something you do on any character, regardless of what kind of character they are. For this alien, the little curves in his ears are going to be shaped like letter J's. And this kind of just makes it feel like there's an inside portion to the ear, which allows him to hear better. Once you've locked in all these lines, feel free to also shade in the collar of that spacesuit. That's a great way to give your sketch some contrast. And even if you're working in a rough sketch without color, if you add in some tone and shading, it's a great way to let your viewer know that there are different values or colors happening on this character, even if you're not working in color. So that's something you see quite a bit in rough sketching. I would say we're also about halfway done. How are we holding up so far? Okay, I got some goods. I got some enthusiasm. I got a lot of silence. A lot of people are like pleading the fifth out there. All right, how about this? Are we having fun? Yeah. Okay, good. We are having fun. If you're not seeing the little green man yet, that's okay. We're only halfway done. We haven't even drawn in his face. Did you have a question, buddy? Or were you just like cheering? You're like, yeah, little green man. I like it. You have a question? Oh, that's okay. You know what? We make mistakes while we're rough sketching all the time. You can still work with it. In fact, I'm just going to draw a line right through the face right here, right? And it's okay because I'm not going to darken it in. And that's what's great about rough sketching is you can make mistakes and you can still work with it because it's just like the idea of the character. Now, does anybody know how many eyes these little guys have? 3. 3, right? And it actually makes them pretty easy to draw. I'm going to start off with a ping pong ball right in the top center of his head here, just resting on that construction line. Now on each side, what makes it nice is now you can just kind of estimate the halfway point between the ear and that center eye, and you'll place in one more eye on each side. Again, all 3 roughly being the size of a ping pong ball. Now, before you lock in the full circle of the eye, let's carve off just the tiniest piece off the bottom of each. And this little detail is going to make the eyes feel like they're inside of the face instead of like an object in front. So little details like that create a little bit more believability for your character. At this point, if you haven't already, go back, lock in the top of the eye, and you can lock in the rest of the head. So it's not a big deal if you already had locked it in. And for the eyes, right now he's probably looking a little spooky without pupils. It's going to look like he saw something at Pizza Planet, right? But we are going to wake this little guy up, and the key is just making sure the pupils line up. Even though these characters are really fun and funny, they're not like a Forky type character where the eyes go different directions and do all sorts of silly things like that. The eyes do go together. So you can have him looking anywhere you like. Maybe he's given side eye. Maybe he's looking up at the claw, hoping he's chosen. Totally up to you. Have fun with it. I would say the size of the pupils, you might want to go the size of like a hole punch or an M&M. They're not super big, but if you go too tiny, it might feel like a Tim Burton character. So I would go something kind of like that for my sketch. I'm just going to have him looking right out at you. And the key to getting the eyes right is once you've drawn in those pupils, make sure that the pupils are the darkest feature on your page. And for those of you who have drawn with us here before, you know that we do this for any character because the eyes are how a character comes to life. That's how we connect with them. And that's what really makes them feel more lifelike and believable. Now, the little green aliens, they've got these really wide set smiles. We're going to sketch that in next. And the way that we try to draw them is like they're talking or saying ooh or the claw, kind of with their lips pursed. I'm going to go to that construction line I drew, and I'm going to place in a little rainbow here in the center. It's going to look great. Like at first, like he's sad, like he's frowning. He wasn't chosen by the claw. But then on each side, you'll curl up to create this really wavy smile. On each end of the smile, we're going to place in some little creases, little rainbows, showing the cheeks are being pushed up. This is something we do on a lot of our characters. It's a little bit more expressive this way. And speaking of expressive, we're going to give him an open mouth smile, so it makes him feel a lot more lifelike, gives him more personality versus just that closed mouth smirk. The shape of the open mouth smile, we're going to pull from towards the inside here, and we're just going to bring down this really wide letter U shape. inside of the mouth, let's just shade it in. Since he's a toy, we don't really need to add in teeth or anything. For this character, that might feel a little out of place. So I'm just going to add in some tone to the inside. Now, any animated feature that gets made goes through a lot of changes while it's in development. And one of the changes for Toy Story, among many, was actually these little characters right here. Because in an early version, Pizza Planet was not going to be a restaurant per se. It was going to be a mini golf course. And it was going to be called Pizza Putt instead of Pizza Planet. And instead of a space theme, there was going to be like little pizzas with sunglasses everywhere as the little mascots. And so that was the original version. They decided to go with the aliens and the space theme to really drive that like Western versus space theme with like Buzz and Woody. And I'm glad they did. I feel like this is a much better fit for the film, but I think that's pretty funny. We could be drawing pieces of pizza right now with sunglasses in a different world. So I think that's pretty funny. To make his smile look really expressive, we're going to draw in some extra lines above and below the smile for his pursed lips. Again, this makes it look like he's saying, ooh, right? Now, we're missing one last thing. It goes on top of his head. What are we missing? The antenna, right? I'm going to use that center construction line to help me, and at the top of my page, I'm going to place in a little circle hovering above. On each side of that construction line, I'm just going to bring down this really tall stretched letter J curve, and it should just disappear behind the eye. What I always think of is like that board game piece. I think it's from the game Sorry, maybe? And it looks just like this. But that's really all you need for drawing the little green man. Anything else you want to add is extra credit. So if you want to draw in some stars behind him to set the scene of Pizza Planet, maybe you want to draw in some other toys, the claw, maybe some other aliens. Have fun with this. Make it your own. Once you're done adding in your extra credit, the very last step is always finding somewhere to sign your name nice and proud, because you've drawn your very own little green alien.